Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Professional Brotherhood podcast. This is it's the New Year's episode, right, Kara?
That's right. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, happy New Year to you. How are things in the lovely central New York?
We're a little chilly today.
Notice I'm
It's a balmy 12 degrees.
balmy 12 degrees. Notice I'm getting this thing down, central New York.
Thank you. I'm really impressed. That's your New Year's resolution. You're going to get your New York geography correct finally after 18 months.
So, yeah, I'll get it right. I'm getting it right. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about tonight's recording. We've had the opportunity over the past couple of years now of talking to a lot of phenomenal people about a lot of really cool stuff in the volunteer fire service. We've had a few local folks to you. We've had a few local folks to me, which has been really cool. And tonight we have four individuals from here in Sullivan County. And if you've been paying attention to the Professional Brotherhood social media feeds, you'll see some things that we've been pushing out here locally regarding recruitment and retention, mentorship. We're really trying to spread the word and bring some new fresh blood into the fire service. And what has come out of this thing is what's called the Sullivan County Recruitment and Retention Task Force. And out of that task force, we have started a platform called Join Sullivan Fire. So I'm very fortunate and happy to be a part of the committee. But on the call with us tonight, we have, and I'm gonna let everybody do a little introduction in a second, but we have John Hauschild, who is the Sullivan County Fire Coordinator, also a past chief of the Jeffersonville Fire Department. We have Brendan Cunningham, who has too many titles for me to list. Now, Brendan is a past chief, newly elected commissioner of the White Lake Fire Department. Jill Holland, who is a commissioner and firefighter with the Conneaut Lake Fire Department, and Chris Ramirez, who is a firefighter in my home department of Rock Hill. So what I would like to do to start off is just if everybody could, well, John, let's start off with you. Let's start off with John. All right, because John, as the fire coordinator, you're the guy who has spearheaded this whole thing, this whole movement, we'll call it. And it really is, it's a big deal because we all know that that volunteer numbers around the country are on the decline. There's a lot of organizations, whether big national organizations like the National Volunteer Fire Council or statewide organizations like the State Fire Chiefs or the Firemen's Association, are all trying to promote volunteerism through their own avenues. And there are some counties that are doing a similar thing. But us as a smaller county in the pool of counties in New York, what for you, what made you kind of take this thing on and say, hey, listen, let's get something together as a county, let's put some people together and let's kind of see what we can do with this.
Sure. I think what it was always a pet peeve of mine where, you ask people if they want to join the fire service and you get the answer, oh, I don't have time, it takes too much training and all that stuff. And I always wanted to get more people involved and once we get them through the door, to keep them involved and go forward. And then I went to a Sullivan County Fire District's meeting and Jill was present there. And she asked a question about what can we do for recruitment and retention? So I quick jumped up and I said, well, being you brought that up, I said, let's run with it. I said, I want to start a recruitment and retention task force. And that's pretty much how we got started. And then our past County Commissioner of Public Safety, Rick Sauer, I and Jill sat down and we did a questionnaire and a survey actually, and went out to all fire chiefs in Sullivan County as well as all commissioners of Sullivan County. And Jill put that together and the three of us put our heads together and we Jill tallied it all up, and then to get the task force started, I wanted involvement from all the associations. So we have the Sullivan County Volunteer Firefighter Association represented. We have the fire districts of Sullivan County represented, and we have yourself, Brian, and Brendan as chiefs of fire departments, all on that task force. And then, just recently we brought Chris on board with us, who's a great asset to our task force. And we just put our heads together as a committee, and we just tried to figure out where we're going to go and what we're going to do. We did do some social events. We did our local bagel festival and our local county fair, trying to recruit new members. And, so far it seems to be working. I think we're up to, Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're up to almost 30 people since we started in April. That showed interest in joining fire departments, and we're going from there.
So John, tell us a little bit about your background in the fire service, because some people, when they think fire commissioner, they're thinking or fire fire coordinator, they're thinking typically more on the coordination side / political side of the service, right? But you have a long history in the fire service, and I think it's important to highlight that, because you've seen a lot of changes in your time, probably even before being a member, as a kid, seeing your dad as a firefighter, right? So why don't you talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. Yeah, my dad was an active firefighter for 56 years in the Jeffersonville Fire Department, and I was born and raised in the firehouse and in the fire service. And one of the biggest things in the memories that got me hooked into the fire service was years ago, and I'm going to show my age now. Before we had pagers, before we had plectrons, we had what was called a fire phone. And my mom and dad on weekends, and some other families, would pick a weekend where you had to stay home and monitor that phone. And when the phone would ring, my brother and I would always run down and we'd kneel on the ground, and there had a button in our house that if it was a fire, we got to push the button and the fire siren would start blowing. So that got me going and got me involved in the fire service, and just watching my dad run out and going to help people. And then coming up through elementary school, I got involved in fire prevention and just working and seeing what the firefighters do. And it was pretty interesting. And then as I got older, when I turned 18, I actually joined the fire department, went to Tompkins Cortland Community College for fire protection technology, and then came out, and I didn't get right into the fire service or the main part of training or anything like that for a couple of years. But then I had my own fire extinguisher business. And then I went to work for the county as the training center coordinator, state fire instructor since 1988, again, showing my age. And if you haven't calculated that yet, I've been a firefighter for 40 years. And I've seen a lot of things, like you said, a lot of changes in the fire service. When I joined the fire service, they had to up our membership in our fire department from 50 to 55 so I could get in. And then it just started declining after that. At one point we went from 52 members down to 24, and just trying to get people to join. It always bothered me why people wouldn't join. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I think this task force is going to help bring that around. And so far it's very positive, and our task force is very positive. So that's kind of where I am in the fire service. And so I came all the way up through the ranks, and, like you said, prior to becoming a firefighter, just watching my dad and stuff.
Harry, you can relate to the whole growing up in the fire service thing. You often refer to yourself as a firehouse brat, right?
Right. I am. I was definitely a firehouse brat, and came up in it under my father, who was also a lieutenant on the department that I'm on. So I can definitely relate to that. And it was always, a part of our family growing up and the experiences, of my childhood. And we grew up with other fire families, and it was a big part of our social structure as well. And I think that now there is not as much of that in the fire service as there was in the past. It's kind of been a little bit of a cultural shift. I think growing up was just very different in that era. And, I good, bad, or indifferent, it wasn't necessarily that the both parents were involved in all the extracurricular activities of their children at the time that I was growing up, in the same way that they are now. And so I think that that has taken some of the time away from people that in the way that they have available. And also I think that there just wasn't such an abundance of extracurricular activities for kids and families in the way that there are now as well. And so that was kind of like what we did. Anything that was going on with the fire department was what we did as a family on the weekends, and that kind of thing. I mean, it was just a given that we would be at the firehouse on the weekends for truck care and cleaning and whatever. I mean, there wasn't really a Saturday or a Sunday that we weren't down at the firehouse. So, that was just kind of what we did. And the families that we hung out with were other fire families. So that was just part of how I was raised.
So let's segue into Brendan, because I mean, you're kind of the same. I mean, your entire family is involved in the firehouse in some way, shape, or form, right? And I think that that it's important to highlight this for you guys, but it's also important to to highlight it because it's not, like Kara said, it's not so much the norm anymore. I mean, you do have families that are bringing, sons or daughters in underneath, but not as much. And especially most of us who live in smaller communities, it may not be that they don't want to. It may just be that life takes them outside of the community, right? So tell us about, your journey a little bit, and how how your journey or what you have seen in your time, because you were a young guy when you got involved, and you were a young guy as a chief officer.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we grew up, my mother was in the auxiliary, my grandmother, my great-grandfather, my great-grandfather was like 50 years as treasurer. He never went in as up the line officer, as a line officer position. He gave me more of the treasurer stuff, and he just drove fire trucks. My grandfather, he's over 50 years. He was chief for Woodstock in 1969. So those things, his brother, cousins and uncles and aunts, all involved, whether in the firehouse or in the auxiliary growing up. So with my mother in the auxiliary, we spent almost every day in the summertime on the Fireman's Beach. So we saw the guys when the calls went out running to the trucks, and always seeing it, firsthand. And that was big for us. And we also had bingo, and that was every Friday night. And we spent with our grandmother in the kitchen cooking, making food, and we were just around the fire trucks, seeing them, pulling them out, setting things up, breaking things down. And every Saturday we would clean the firehouse, and we would get paid, I don't know, $5 or something. And my great grandmother was huge on it, and she really pushed us to become part of the organization. And we joined, one of 5. We all joined when we were 16, and she really pushed for us to get there. Her biggest thing, we had to get a jacket when we first got in, and she made sure we got our jacket. But she was one of the main reasons we really joined the fire service. But being around it, I mean, 16 years old, I didn't even have a driver's license. My brother drove me, but when we first got in, my father would drive us to calls. He was never a part of the fire service, but he drove us to calls. He'd drop us off and we'd get a ride home with somebody else. So that was, at the beginning, it was like, we never want to be the first one to the scene, but that changed pretty quick. I went from being slow to being the first one in almost every call. So, I mean, I became a lieutenant, I think I was 18, and I was first assistant chief at 19. and I was chief of the department at 21. Now I'm just getting out at 31. Well, 32. I'm 32.
Yeah.
Back to lieutenant. So,
Yeah,
oh,
that's-
now commissioner.
That's young, and we won't dive down that rabbit hole tonight, but we could do a whole episode on that, you know, being chief at 21 years old, no doubt about it. We might have to do that, Kara. So let's make that
Yeah.
note, you know.
Well, the biggest thing with that was the guys that I had as leaders. They talked to me, they pushed for me and said, no matter what, we're here. If you have
Yeah.
questions, anything, just ask, and we're always going to be there. And they were always there.
Yeah, for sure. Jill, as the newest member of the group to the fire service, let's hear a little bit about your history. And I know, you know, it started for you personally anyway, as a commissioner, actually getting yourself involved and kind of making that segue in, you know, becoming the commissioner first and then saying, oh, all right, well, you know, how can I be even more, you know, involved and helpful at my firehouse?
Yeah, and you know, I was familiar with the fire service because I too grew up in the fire department. My stepdad, 50 years as a fireman, you know, commissioner, chief, all that, and growing up in the firehouse and things at Ladies Auxiliary, and then I kind of stepped away, and then my stepdad really got my son involved in it. And he was a firefighter. He became a firefighter at Conneaut Lake. And when I was appointed commissioner, I was doing a lot of things. I was helping out a lot with scene support, things like that, when they needed somebody because they didn't have a whole lot of help. And basically, at 55, I decided to join and become a firefighter because I was doing things and being involved with it. So I decided to step out of that comfort zone and become a firefighter as well as a commissioner.
It's awesome. That's awesome. So Chris, you and I are the oddballs of the group, right? And I think it's really important to highlight that because, you know, we've got everybody else on the recording tonight had family or grew up around the service or something, right? I did not. Well, I shouldn't say I did not. My grandfather was involved, but I really did not know my grandfather. I didn't spend time with my grandfather. I really didn't know that side of it, right? So I think, you know, because we're talking about everything, you know, that the task force is going to be doing and our goals and how we're looking to bring in new members of the service, I think it's important, you know, to highlight the fact that, you know, not everybody that gets involved in the volunteer fire department does so because they have family in it, right?
Sure. Correct. You know, neighbors came to me, you know, and convinced me to join, just showed up on my driveway. So, but you know, I'll go into it. I can explain to kind of give you my background a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my name's Chris Ramirez. I've been a professional photographer for 30 years. 15 of those years I shot for the New York Times as a photojournalist. Prior to that, I worked for various daily, weekly newspapers in the Hudson Valley of New York State. I came to the fire service about 12 years ago after shifting my work towards commercial cinematography. Newspapers were on the decline at the time. And I knew, you know, being a firefighter was going to be a real departure from what I was used to. Events, you know, as a photojournalist, you know, we're focused on capturing events, you know, as they unfold in front of us and not being part of the news itself. So leaving the camera behind was an adjustment. And I think Brian has witnessed that over the last, you know, 10 years or so. Maybe John has probably witnessed it. It's definitely an adjustment. It's kind of switched now. Now it's easy to leave the cameras behind. It's hard to leave the Halligan behind. So, but for now, my job on the task force is going to be as a journalist. I'll be capturing, you know, the experience of Sullivan County firefighters through words, pictures, and video. It's going to be pushed out onto social media over the next year. You know, this outreach effort is going to be county-wide. You know, we've got 40+ departments in our county, and I'll be capturing individual stories, highlighting department specialties, training, and the services that they excel in. The purpose is going to be to instill pride amongst our members for the work that we do, and at the same time present a relatable, inspirational story for prospective recruits. So that's kind of the work that we all have in front of us. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the work maybe that we've done already. But
for
yeah,
sure.
coming into, I came to the fire service when I was 46, 47, maybe 45. I can't remember.
It all blends together after a while.
It does.
It's you're good.
It does. And I couldn't believe like I missed out on all of it. I wish I would have gotten into it sooner. Sure.
What made you, you're in your mid 40s. It's like you said, it's outside. It's not something you had ever done before, or you ever really thought of doing before. Maybe, you're capturing all kinds of stuff from behind the lens, but these guys knock on your door from your neighborhood fire department and they're like, hey, we need help. Would you consider joining us? What was it that made you say, hey, maybe this is something that I can do? What was the...
Well, honestly, they needed help with their social media, or I guess it's when Facebook came out and their website. So they approached me that way. I've got a ponytail, still have a ponytail. And I think, they didn't see me. I don't honestly, they didn't see me, as a firefighter or becoming a firefighter.
I saw you as some hippie that just moved into the
saw me as a
area,
hippie. They saw me as a hippie,
right.
And so I was, I was interested in the culture for sure. Being a journalist and wanting to find out what's going on, and obviously, just respecting the work itself, and I can't give enough accolades to all of you guys, especially, chiefs and, line officers who were responding initially to calls. And so they had their doubts about me. And I was like, really? You guys have doubts? All right, let's do this. So, I kind of like just came to that conclusion that I need to do this. And I knew it was going to be challenging. I knew it was super, super challenging. That's the best part about it. It was just really hard and challenging. So
Cool. All right. Awesome. Kara, you got something?
Yeah, so I'm interested. I have so many questions about the task force and how you guys got started. And, I think it's so interesting because it's recruitment and retention is so vital right now and so important right now. So I wanted to circle back and ask Jill a little bit about the survey and how you got that started, and how you put it together and what kind of responses you got.
Sure. Rick Sauer, our former Commissioner of Public Safety, and John and we sat down. I had formulated a list of questions and things. We kind of reviewed it. We sent it out. We sent it out to chiefs as well as commissioners. We had a 90% response rate from our chiefs and a almost 48% response rate from our commissioners. So we had like a total of almost 73% of a response rate from the county and things. And it was asking everything to, how have you recruited in the past couple of years? What are some of your benefits? Do you have programs like LoSAP or, other types of benefits? Do you have a fireman's park or a beach house or things like that? Have you participated in Recruit New York? If so, was it successful? And we gathered a lot of good data to kind of to move forward. And one of the questions that we had the highest response rate for was, are you interested in a countywide recruitment and retention, either task force or program? And we had a 98% response rate of yes for that. So because we kind of put that out there before we even started putting the task force together, because we figured if we weren't going to get a response and people weren't going to be interested in it, we weren't going to spend the time on that.
Sure.
So, but the overall responses were really great, which was really hopeful, and gave us a lot of momentum to start putting the task force together.
I think that was a really smart, way to put it out there and gather information and gather data about it. And I think that, putting together a task force is really an interesting way to tackle this problem, because I think that, just the crux of the issue is that we don't have enough manpower to do the work sometimes, especially in some of our small rural departments. We need more people in the fire service from the get-go. So it can be really daunting for these departments to even pull enough people to put together a recruitment committee or retention committee, by department. And so when you're looking at how to even overcome that issue, looking at it as a county collaboration can be a really great way to overcome that part of it. So when you looked at, did you have any responses from anybody that was like, we just want to tackle this as an individual?
No, of course, everybody wanted to do something, everybody wanted the task force. But one of the questions was, do you want to participate in things? And those responses were a little less limited. Right. But we've noticed that, in the 40 fire districts we have in departments we have in Sullivan County, as the momentum has been growing with the task force, we have been getting some more departments on board, and some departments, have come on board that we didn't expect to come on board and to help out, and have really stepped up and things. So that was a big surprise.
Yeah, I'm sure that, once they start to see that there's some success with it and some momentum behind it, it's a little bit easier to get that buy-in. Did you find that there was any particular events? I know that you mentioned that you had, John, you mentioned that you had some outreach events, public events. Did you find that any of those were more successful than others, or you had a better response than others with those?
Not really. I think our bagel festival was more active than the county fair. The bagel festival, I think we picked up 6 to 9 new people that were interested in joining the fire service. We were able to do more at the bagel festival. We had a live demo. We had a fire department come in and use the Jaws of Life to play Jenga. So it was pretty cool, and we drew people there. The way, and the fair, I shouldn't say wasn't that good, but it was, the way I look at it, if you get one person interested,
Sure.
it was worth the time. And then if that person continues and joins and moves on, it was definitely worth it. But just getting out in the public and letting people know that we're there, and we probably had a lot of firefighters stop by the booth more than people that wanted to join. And I think it was curiosity. They didn't know what we were about. And I think that's probably one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is they don't know what to do when a new person joins.
Right.
With that individual. And I think that's what the task force was gearing up to. When we get a lead from our Join Sullivan Fire social media pages, we have an email, we have Instagram, Facebook, and if we get messages, the messages are collected, they come to me, and then I forward them on to the chief, and then we follow up with that chief. Hey, how'd you make out with this individual? Did they come down to the station? Did they get an application? And if they didn't call them, we kind of push them to, hey, look, this person's interested, or these people are interested in joining, get right on them,
Right.
And Brendan can play, he's very proactive with that. you have somebody that's interested, he hands them an application right away, so it's,
one of the big pieces of the task force is not only the advertising and the trying to bring in new people, but it's also the educational component of the agencies that we're trying to get to take part in this, because we all know it doesn't matter where you are. Kara, I'm sure you have it up by you. There's some agencies that are very, very progressive, and they have some great people that take the lead on things, and they have a lot of this stuff lined up, and they realize that when somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to volunteer, that you better strike while that iron's hot, because if you let it lag for a week, 2 weeks, a month, you might lose that person. And like John said, Brendan does a great job. His agency does a great job of grabbing, once somebody mentions getting that application, he'll talk about it, Brendan. I mean, you'll hand deliver it. You'll bring him down to the firehouse. You'll give him the tour, but you make it happen quick.
Yeah, we just, our latest member he lives right on the district line of our neighboring district and us. And he was leaning which way to go. And he saw on our social media what we do and how we do things. And he really drew him in. And he said, can I meet you at the firehouse? I don't even know what, maybe it was a Thursday at 5 o'clock or something. And I said, sure, I'll be right there. And he met me. And I showed him around the firehouse, walked him around the trucks, gave him an application. I said, if you want to fill it out now, you can, or come back later. He ended up filling it right out and bringing it back. And he's been hooked ever since. He just finished BFO class. And he's ready to go interior. So as soon as he can get to class. So, and he was right on the edge. He was really ready to go to the other department, and he stuck with us.
Yeah, I think that's vital, is to have that, initial point of contact, and to have somebody on the receiving end that's just as enthusiastic, right? I mean, I think that is so vital, and we've talked about it on the show before, when we discuss mentorship in departments. If your mentor that you're assigned to isn't matching your enthusiasm when you're a new member, and they're barely returning your calls, and they're not, we all remember what it was like when we first got started. And, Brendan, you talked about that before. You at first you were, not really being the first one there. And then, you caught it, and you're like moving right up through the ranks and everything. If you're not matching the energy of your new recruits, they're going to match your energy. And so when you have your new people that are interested, if you're not matching their level of energy, you're not gonna make that member want to take classes and not want to, carry through. And I think that's the retention piece. The retention starts with the recruitment. If you have no hope of retaining a member if their recruitment doesn't go well.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that we've talked about amongst ourselves, and Carrie, you and I have probably talked about it before on some episode, but everything, especially in smaller departments, everything typically seems to fall into a couple of hands. It's usually the chief, or maybe the chief or the president on the executive side. And I think one of the things that we're trying to get people to understand is, maybe the chief isn't the go-to person when it comes to getting that application in somebody's hand, getting those initial steps, to start getting them in the door. Maybe the chief just doesn't have time. I mean, legitimately doesn't have time, whether it's, because they have a bunch of different tasks because of their role at the firehouse, or their job doesn't allow them the free time to, do what Brendan did on a Thursday evening, at 5 o'clock, to run down there and meet somebody. But what's key for recruitment and retention, and part of, the educational piece that we're trying to put out there, is we need to figure out who those people are within each agency, right? And just open our eyes and look in the mirror and say, hey, I may hold the title, but if I'm not the person that can meet somebody and being extremely enthusiastic about what it is to become a volunteer firefighter, I shouldn't be the person that's meeting that person to hand them that application.
Right. Now, how did you set that up within the task force? How do you advise your departments on how to make that happen?
Well, I think one of the things is what we're planning on doing in February is having a seminar, setting your volunteers up for success is one of the ways to get firefighters, officers, commissioners into the door and let them actually see what to do and the right way to do it. And like Brian said before, education is the biggest thing. We're just trying to promote it as much as possible. COVID kind of restricted us a little bit. I know everybody hates that word COVID right now because
Right.
we keep using it, but it has hurt us because we wanted to go out and do a large group and for the officers, go around to stations, and we were kind of limited and can't do that. But this seminar we're doing in February, I think is going to be a big shot and a big push for us to continue that on and get the word out and what to do. And we've thrown it out there. The task force threw it out there to everybody. If you have questions, you need help, please reach out to the task force. Not that we're experts, we're just learning. Every day we learn something new for the task force, but you know, we're there and we're getting a lot of positive stuff, and a lot of chiefs are reaching out now and I think moving forward.
Sure. Yeah. I think, you know, for a lot of departments, you know, there's a lack of those educational resources because a lot of it in some ways is almost like human resources. You know, you don't have a human resource department necessarily, you know, available to you. So it's not like you come in as a chief always with those skills, you know, depending on what line of work you're in. Otherwise, you know, maybe you are your job is paid firefighter, maybe your job is something totally different. You know, unless you have those skills coming in, personnel issues, you know, how to maintain your staff, how to address your staff, how to handle issues with your staff. All of those things are not necessarily job skills that everybody comes into, you know, a fire department with, right? So to Brian's point, learning who's going to be your Walmart greeter at the door for your new staff is something that some people have to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's definitely huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, one of the things that we're facing as well, being a smaller county, is not all of our agencies have social media pages. Not all of them have Facebooks. Not all of them have Instagrams. You know, some of them, I think it would be fair to say, some of them probably don't have the people that even really know how to get that set up. Right. So that's one of the things that we're trying to assist with as well. Whether, all right, they can't do something on their own. All right, let's talk about, you know, what are we doing as a task force? And Chris, you could probably jump in here. You know, what are we doing between Chris and Brendan? What are we doing here as a task force to promote all of this as a whole? And when we receive, and aside from promotion, when we receive the leads, John already talked a little bit about it, you know, how are we handling those leads so we can help those agencies that might not quite be there yet on their own?
That last question might go to Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is with the leads, we've had a few that have been on the edge, and I think there's been a few that have fallen through the cracks with certain departments. And you know, Jill and I had joked around with a neighboring one that was close to go to either one of them, and I think he kind of fell off and went a different path. And I think our part is trying to keep up on them, is to see how they're doing, question them. A couple things one person had was communication troubles with that department. So when we tried keeping up on it, but like I said, he just went a different path. I think we got too late. But with us keeping up on it, maybe down the road, he's gonna turn around and go somewhere else. But
Yeah, and we've had some leads as well that have come in that ended up not even being in our county. Right, Jill, we had a couple of those that came in that I think the one, because I ended up having some communication with her. She actually worked in our county, didn't live in our county yet, wasn't quite sure where she was going to settle, in life. And it ended up going to another county, but we don't care. The idea is to put boots on the ground, right? It doesn't matter if somebody sees our social media, and sure, we hope that they're going to benefit us here in Sullivan County, but you know what, if they ended up, benefiting, Orange County or Monroe County or someplace else, that's okay too. That's all right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's the thing with the leads. One of our very first leads we got actually came from the UK. And when we got the lead, Brendan and I went back and forth. Is this real? Is this a scam? And, come to find out, this individual was living in the UK. She was moving into the county in the area she was interested in. We were able to get her, when she did make the move, she got hooked up with the fire company and she became a member and things. So you just never know what's going to happen with the lead. And then we've had some other leads that just weren't, they weren't right for the fire companies that they wanted to join and things. So, it's always good that we have an opportunity to have such diversity with the leads and kind of work with the fire companies to find out what's the right fit sometimes too.
I want to jump to Chris on what we're doing, but before we do that, Carrie, I just want to bring up one thing that you and I have talked about before. And one of the first things we discussed as a committee when we got together was how recruitment, specifically the recruitment piece, is often approached from the negative side, right? And when I say that, I mean, if you look at a lot of the media that's put out there, that typically it's more scare tactics, right? Lack of volunteers. We're running. I mean, I've done interviews where you would think all the volunteer firehouses are like closing tomorrow. And that's the line of questioning you get from people, because, there's people are trying to do their job and promote volunteerism and try and recruit new members. But in the process of doing that, right, we're almost creating like this scare, that your volunteer firehouse is going to close tomorrow, So one of the things we initially talked about was, sure, there's a realism to it. And there are some agencies that are really hurting, that really need help. But at the end of the day, we want to attack this from the positive side. What can being a volunteer firefighter do for you? When you're helping your community, what are the benefits for you of the individual? Why should you do this? And you and I have talked about that often.
Yeah, because again, touching back to the kind of cultural shift in today's day and age, and what you and I have talked about is, it used to be your community was everything about you. You lived there, you worked there, your whole family was there. And now your community might be just only where your house is. Your kids might not even go to school in that community. And so that has caused a big shift away from serving your community.
Sure.
And, so trying to bring people back into that fold and have them have an understanding that the community needs service-oriented people, putting a positive spin on that and helping them to understand. Because I know that even in my community, a lot of people don't have an understanding that the ambulance corps is volunteer and that the fire department is volunteer.
Sure.
A lot of them think that it's, it's just, that we're just at the firehouse all the time.
And we have a huge issue with that here, because it's a big second homeowner area, right? We have second homeowner. Right. Every one of our communities, everybody that's in here has a huge influx of second homeowners that maybe now it's their primary home, and we saw that wave after 9/11, and now we're seeing that wave after COVID, so it's that's absolutely an extremely valid point.
And we have where I live, my community is very small, and it's both a college community and also a tourist community, because we're right on a lake. And so we have a big influx of seasonal people. Mm-hmm. And so that's another challenge. And so trying to promote it from the positive side that says, hey, we need to all work together to make this community run.
Absolutely.
Is a better approach rather
Yeah.
than the saying of we're all falling apart.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So Chris, let's talk about some of the things that we're going to be doing here over the coming weeks and months. It's anybody that if you're paying attention to our social media feeds, we've shared some of the stuff. We've shared the couple videos that the task force has rolled out over the last couple weeks. Chris did a really good job of making John look fabulous, put him in his class A's, powdered his nose, gave him some great lighting, right? So what do we
Oscar worthy. I
loved it. It was good. It was good. And it is good. What are we doing? Rolling here, going out into the future here.
So I think this first month, I think here we're focused on the workshop that's happening. It's 4 hours long. So we're pushing that. And at the same time, I am in like full content production mode right now. I did, over the past 12 years, I have taken a lot of pictures, certainly at the training center. We're going to be utilizing that. We're creating ads, images with quotes in it from firefighters around Sullivan County. We'll be creating that, but I think we're going to start rolling those out after the workshop, after the departments get the educational portion of it, and we've talked about doing it very consistently. That's part of the problem that social media, you run out of content, and you after 2 or 3 months, you've got nothing really, you don't have a consistent, branding, imagery to continue with. So we're tackling that. And I want to say, and I think it's important to say that the task force has had to raise money to do this work, because it is a lot of work. There's a lot of chasing people down. We've got 40 plus departments. I'm not going to say I'm going to hit all 40 departments, but we're going to hit a good number of them. And that's a lot of phone calls. That's a lot of going and talking to, to firefighters, just some inside, what's happening like this week is, we put out a questionnaire to, right now I've got 15 to 20 firefighters and ask them, what does it mean being a Sullivan County firefighter? Give me 3 of those, answer that. Give me three answers. And they've all come in, and some of them are really beautiful. And we're going to use them. I'm going to go up and talk to them, record them. And that's going to be a lot of the content that we're going to put out. And it really, again, all this is to, we want to show what it means, when human beings help other human beings. I think is the thing that we want potential recruits to get. So it's been fun working with all these guys. I know most of them for a while. I've been on plenty of fire scenes with Brendan and John and Jill I met last year. But I think we're all focused on what's the mission ahead, and thankfully we got funding. Because again, if we didn't have it, this couldn't be done right. So
yeah, I mean, look, everything, we all know everything, nothing's free, right? Nothing's free in life. I mean, you can only turn to people that do something for a business or a profession and are willing to share those special skills as a volunteer for so long, right? I mean, for somebody like Chris to sit in his chair, 6, 8, 10 hours a day and make videos and edit things and put out really professional content is costing somebody money, and it's costing him money to sit there in that chair and do that for us, so or to anybody really. So funding is important. We don't have a super high budget, right, John? I mean, it's not like we're sitting on thousands and thousands of dollars here. We fortunately got some funds from our local senator, right, Mike Martucci, who
Yep.
helped us with some funds. The County Association of Fire Districts, the County Volunteer Firefighters Association, all kicked in some funds to help with this project. And for anybody listening, Jill, I think you were a part of making this. I know you were a part of making this happen, but one of the things that the local association of fire districts did is you guys put a monetary figure into your dues, right, moving forward every year, that's going to specifically go towards recruitment and retention. And I think for anybody that's listening that might be a part of an organization and thinking, hey, how can we start to raise some funds to make an effort like this? I think that is definitely a really solid way of doing it.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. And even prior to us raising our dues, this past year, we put out a $50 assessment to each fire district, asking them to contribute $50 to the recruitment and retention to get that started. And again, the response was overwhelming. I would have to say at least 75% of the fire districts sent that in without a problem. And, even with the increase in our dues, with that percentage going towards recruitment and retention, no one's batted an eyelash about it, because they're all full of, supporting us wholeheartedly. So, which has been really great.
Yeah, I think some other things is not just the monetary, but some organizations in the county are really helping us out. Like at the Bagel Festival and the county fair, they supported us and worked with us. They know that we're volunteers, and they know we have very limited budget, and they worked with us. So that's a big factor also. Sorry,
For
Kara, I
sure.
didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, it's so, what you guys have done here is so interesting. And I think so important, such important work. It would be great to see a write-up about it, to get the word out about what you have done. And I mean, it's wonderful to have you, on the podcast so that we can share this important work and to tell others about it and see. But are there any plans to write a little article, for some of the publications for FASNY or some of the other publications to share what you guys have been able to do with this program?
Jill, you want to go with that?
Jill, I'm signing you up for more work.
We're definitely, that's definitely probably in our future. We have been invited to speak at a state association conference this coming spring. So we're going to be working on that as well. And I think right now our big focus is really on our county level and this workshop that we're having in February. We really want to give our companies the tools and things to make them successful and make the new members and everybody successful. So I think right now that's kind of where the focus is, but that's definitely could be something for us to think about in the future.
Well, great. It's wonderful. I'm so excited that you're bringing the seminar to your departments. I think that's so valuable for them. And, they otherwise might not, have the opportunity or even know about it. So it's wonderful. And I think that it takes some of the recruitment and retention tools that were available to the next level and really actually takes those tools and puts them in the hands of the departments. It makes it more tangible. And I think that sometimes that's something that's hard for departments to overcome. They know that there's some resources out there, but how to actually access them and make them applicable and how to put them into use is where they struggle a little bit. So I think it's a really amazing program, and really kudos to you all for putting in the work for this.
Thanks.
And I was just gonna say real quickly with the seminar, I've seen it twice already, virtually and in person. And each time I've learned something different. It's wonderful to see the progression of it and to see, all the awesome things. And I think the best thing about it is everybody can leave there from that workshop that day and go back to their fire company or their fire district either that day or that night and start using some of the stuff that they learn about in that workshop, which for me that's really exciting because it's not something that they have to wait or order or put together. They can start right away with it.
The analogy that I like is that we're setting the table, and then recruitment is going to be inviting them to dinner. So that's the analogy.
I love it.
I like that, Chris. Did you just come up with that while you were sitting there?
Who do you think came up with it?
Your wife came up with that, didn't
Exactly.
she? Yeah.
She's a
Well,
brilliant,
tell Lisa that's a good one. I like that one a lot.
she's a brilliant one.
Do you got anybody have anything in closing that they wanted to get out there before I wrap this up?
No, I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to bring our task force on your program and help get the word out even more. I think it's a step in the right direction for us again, and I think that's positive.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've been, I appreciate you guys coming on. I mean, I've known all of you guys for quite some time. Look, John is one of my original, fire service mentors, so I've taken plenty of class with John over the years. I'm happy to be a part of this, but we're fortunate enough to have a pretty good listenership at this point, which is exciting. Kind of started from nothing, right, Kara? And we're kind of surprised at some of the messages we get sometimes and where they come from. But
Yes.
Everything that we share is relevant to, there's the old saying that, you change the sign on the front of the firehouse, but the problems are all the same and the issues are the same. And that's true. And we hear that from, used to be, we would hear it locally or at our county or maybe at the fire academy, but now, Kara and I hear it from across the country, different parts of the country, different other countries, it really brings home the fact that everybody is struggling with these things. And that's why we like to, try and get as much of the word out and as much content out as we possibly can. And I think this is going to be a huge help for others, that happen to listen to the show. And look, for me, and I'm going to speak for my cohort in crime on the seminar, Chief Andrushak. We are really, really excited to present this. We've got a couple opportunities coming up this month and in February. We're presenting in January down in Rockland County. And we're presenting February 12th for the task force in Sullivan County. And Chris and I just went and looked at the venue. It's a beautiful venue, really nice room. I mean, I feel a little, I don't know. He wanted to mic me up with speakers and stuff. I'm like, nah.
We got to talk about that.
I got a big mouth. You don't need to put speakers in the room. But no, seriously, we're really excited to share this. It's been well received, and I'm hoping that we can really, really make a difference. Not just with the seminar and the task force behind it, and really, really get some of our agencies the help that they need, or the tools that they need, along with the help that they need. So, yeah. Kara, any final thoughts?
No, I just, I really encourage all departments to take advantage of any opportunities that they have to use these resources, locally, and to, pick each other's brains. We're all in this together, and, whatever's available to you, use it. We should all be students of the job perpetually.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thank you very much. I appreciate you, taking a little over an hour out of your time to hang out with us tonight, and thank you very much. All right. And
Great meeting everybody.
if we-
Thank you.
Yes, same here.
if we get any questions, we'll which I'm sure we will. If we need to forward them on, we'll forward them on. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.